So I realized while trying to put together this video that I could probably talk about the things that I liked and the things that I didn't like and the things that I'm excited about from this book for a very long time. But I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet, focus on the things I feel the most strongly about. So first of all, I really enjoyed reading this book. I believe I said in the last video I was about 2/3 of the way through at that point, and I was really liking it, and I finished it, and I enjoyed it all the way to the end. Each character in the book had an interesting perspective. Sometimes when books jump perspectives, I'm not a huge fan of it because sometimes one character is more interesting than another. Like one character situation isn't as interesting or exciting or attention grabbing, so it feels like a slog to get through, and you just want to get through it to get to back to the character you're actually interested in. But in this, I really enjoyed each character's perspective and what they were doing in the story. The end was very exciting, and I've found that that's pretty consistent with the book so far. I really liked the ends of both the first and the second book. Even though I wasn't a huge fan of the second book, the end was really, really good. Robert Jordan seems to do a really good job of taking these characters that seem to be spread across a continent or who are traversing across continents and bring them together for an explosive ending. And I really appreciate that, and I'm curious to find out if that is a trend that will continue or if some endings will be more subdued. I'm okay with a subdued ending as long as it's still gripping. I'm glad that Matt got a lot more attention in this book. He had a lot more chapters from his perspective. We didn't really get a whole lot of that in the other books, mostly other people's view of Matt. In the first book, I was not a huge fan of Matt. He was a very frustrating character, always causing trouble and making mistakes. But I feel like I appreciate his strength a lot more now. He seems more like a rounded character. I understand him a lot more, and I'm very curious to see where his story takes him. Yeah, I'm very curious to see how that goes. One problem that I had in the previous books was the repetitive phrasing, which I've heard is a problem a lot of people have with Robert Jordan's writing. He tends to repeat certain facts a lot, certain details and such, and I found that very grating, especially in the second book, probably because there were other things I didn't like in the second book, so I kind of fixated on the things that I didn't like, such as Rand and Perrin constantly thinking that the other was better at talking to girls. Like, I don't know how many times Perrin thought, man, I wish Rand were here because he's so much better at talking to girls than I am, or Rand thought the same thing about Perrin. Just ridiculous and drove me insane. But in the Dragon Reborn, I didn't notice it as much. I can say that it isn't until page 57 that Perrin makes a comment about Rand being able to talk to girls. It goes, he wished that he could be certain Rand was in his right mind, or that Matt were there. He was never sure of his ground with girls, but Rand always seemed to know his way. So did Matt. So Matt's included in that, I guess. But yeah, either it wasn't as apparent, it wasn't as much there, or it didn't bother me as much. I was able to skim over it, like I'm used to it now, so now I can just read over it and not let it bother me as much. That may be the case. There were definitely other points where certain details really stuck out, such as Nynaeve tugging at her braid, and I did wear my hair in a braid today. I did not do that on purpose. I realized at the end of the day that I was planning on making this video and that I had been tugging at my braid all day, so it felt a little hypocritical, me thinking that and then doing that. But I still feel like we didn't need to be told so many times that she tugs on her braid. Like, she was doing it every time you saw her. Every time, like, camera pan to her, she's tugging at her braid. We get it. She's always doing it. Not a terrible criticism. Like, it's definitely something that I obviously push through, and I'm hoping that the rest of the books fare the same way. Like, I'm able to push through it in the same way, or it's just not as much there in the rest of the books. Anyway, so the next book is called The Shadow Rising, so I expect that bad things are going to happen, but I'm okay with that, and I am going to insert a spoiler here, so we'll put a stamp showing spoiler, and then when it's done I'll remove it. What I want to talk about, at the end of the Dragon Reborn, Rand thinks he killed the Dark One because he killed Balzamon. I think I'm pronouncing it right, I don't know. But Moraine says no, because there was a dead body, but Moraine says that the Dark One is not human, so he wouldn't leave a human body behind, kind of thing. That we're all crazy for thinking that the Dark One is dead, because that was not the Dark One. And that, I can't say enough how glad I am that that is the case. It seems like, oh, I should be glad that, or I shouldn't be glad that the Dark One's not dead. But, I mean, this is a 14-book series. The Dark One cannot die in the 3rd book. But this sort of gets at an issue that I had with the books up to this point, because the 1st book was really spooky and scary because there was the Dark One, this evil force kind of looming over everything, and it was so mysterious that it made it very scary. And I felt like after the end of the 1st book, he wasn't as scary, because Rand was able to hurt him. So, I mean, not easily, but like, it seemed for someone just coming into his powers, and it's the 1st book in a 14-book series, like, it seemed easy. And I was like, there's no way. He's not really the Dark One. I kept looking, like, paying attention to every time they mentioned him, because I was like, but he's not the Dark One, because how could he be injured if he was the Dark One? So that was confusing for me, and it just, the fact that Rand beat him or injured him at the end of the 1st book, at the end of the 2nd book, and at the end of the 3rd book, just made him less and less scary. I really wanted the bad guy to be really intimidating, and he wasn't. He was like popping into people's dreams uninvited, which is terrible, but not that scary. So when Moraine said that that's not the Dark One, and implied that it could have been another Forsaken or this Ishmael guy that was a puppet sort of being used by the Dark One, it felt good in the sense that, like, you know, when something really scares you, really gets at you. It really got to me, so that was good. And I am wondering how the Dark One is going to manifest in the next one, if we're gonna see more of that in the next one. So I don't have the 4th book yet, but I will probably get it from the library maybe this weekend, but in the meantime I did start Heretics of Dune, so depending on how that goes, that may affect when I start the next one. I want to know what part of this book stood out to you the most. Or was it a particular character? Was it the Forsaken or the Ale Warriors, which were really interesting? I really liked that we saw more of them too. Tell me what part of this book made you feel the most excited to keep reading. So thanks for watching. If you want to see more, please subscribe. It's been pretty fun making these videos. I am going to try and put a video out every weekend, so we'll see. Yeah, thanks for watching and have a nice day. Bye.